That's a 55 grain M193. That far target is at 425 yards. That HUD reticle, that barrel, that trigger, it works. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over this build right here. It's what I've been calling online the ultimate DMR build. And well, first, I suppose we should get into what does that mean. So for those who don't know, DMR stands for Designated Marksman Rifle. And basically, if you look at the U.S. Marine Corps and the U.S. Army, they've kind of had different sort of thought processes on what goes into that when selecting it over the last 20 years. The same would apply for the Navy SEALs as well. But basically, my concept of it is, you know, think about somebody out in an observation post or somebody who's just out patrolling with a platoon or whatever the case may be. Most of your guys have M4s, but you want something that if a target pops up at 500 yards, you have a much better chance of accurately engaging that target than somebody with like aim-point CCO and an M4 would have. So that's part of the concept here. Another part of the concept of the designated marksman rifle is same thing. You know, company goes out on a mission and somebody has to provide overwatch. You don't have designated snipers. You don't have designated soft people attached to you to do that. So you're going to send like a two-man team up into an OP, whether it be in a building or in an elevated piece of terrain. And you want somebody there to be able to own that terrain that they're looking over throughout the movement, right? So you get up in your OP, you do your sector sketch, you identify dead space, all of those sorts of things, you pre-arrange targets, and you're ready in case something pops up quick. And again, you want a rifle that is better at engaging them than just your standard line soldier would have. Now, in terms of caliber, again, look at the 308, or rather the USMC and the US Army's difference on it. But I think having common caliber interchangeability between most folks in the unit is good, particularly if you have the ability as somebody who's in the DMR role to use your own specific ammo type, whether it be the 318 or whatever else folks have used over the years for that. 262 has been used for it as well. But if you have to throw some 855 in there, you can, and you're just fine. So that is kind of the mindset that went into this rifle right here. Weight is definitely a consideration in that role. Like I was saying, some things you kind of want the weight for, some things you don't, in case you have to go into a building or something like that and clear everything out before you can establish your firing position. So what we're gonna do, I guess before getting into all those details, is go out, shoot some groups with it, see what kind of groups I can get with me behind the rifle with the ammo on that particular day in those particular conditions. And then we're going to come back in and kind of get into the details of why I selected everything that you see here and basically what I think of it overall. Now we're going to test the accuracy of the rifle. We got 5 loads, which is very abnormal for me, but sort of the purpose of the build was to see how precise we could get in terms of precise aimed fire over a consistent period of time with the barrel profile. So first up, just some M193. People always ask to use, you know, non-match ammo, so we'll do that. It's Federal 5.56 chambering and 55 grain, of course. Scope, I think we probably already talked about it, but it's the PA 2.5 to 10, so plenty of glass, target down range at 100 yards, CTK precision rest. And I think that's it. Let's do it. Doesn't look terrible from here with M193 anyway. All right, next up we're gonna go with a Federal load, 223 chambering with the Barnes TSX 55 grain bullet in there. Excellent bullet all around, hunting, self-defense, whatever the case may be if you're looking for something lighter. But we'll see how it does accuracy-wise here. Alrighty, next load up here, guys, is going to be a Federal load. This is again 223. It's 73 grain and it has the Burger match target bullet, and definitely a good load if you guys want to shoot long range with 223. It does well in the wind down range, but we'll see how it does accuracy wise. That looks a little better from here anyway. All right. It's not that hot out today, so I'm not super worried about the barrel heating up, but again, it has a good SAMR profile anyway. I guess we'll throw the 69 grain Federal gold medal match up here. Boat tail hull point. It is a great round. A lot of people think it's the standard 223 for this sort of thing, so we'll see. Since by the nature of the title of this video and the way YouTube works with search features and all of that jazz, I'd imagine we're going to get a good number of people watching this video who are not subscribers. So for those of you guys out there wondering if this rifle is in fact zeroed, it is. When I'm shooting for precision, I just pick a small spot on the target, usually a corner. So I'm not trying to drill the bullseye there. Plus each load's gonna hit a little bit different anyway. But what we have next is some Gorilla ammunition, 223 chambering again, 69 grain Sierra Match King, open tip match bullet in there. This one over the years has shot well also, so we'll see how it does in this barrel. If that one went left, that was me. It felt like I yanked it a little bit. Let's go check them out. I don't think I mentioned it back there at the bench, but yeah, we had some pretty bad wind out here today too. You guys can probably hear it now because I don't have the lav in. But that was M193 there. Right at 2 inches center to center. Then we came over here with the TSXs. Again, 55 grain loading. We're just under there, probably 1 3/4. Came over here with the burger load, right at 3/4 inch on that one. And then this was the Federal, I believe, 69 grain. About 1 3/8 inches on that one. And then this was the Gorilla load. Again, you guys know better than me at this point, if that was the one I said I pulled. Even taking that into account, we're right at 1 1/8 inches. Not taking it into account, right at 1 inch. So those are the groups we got. Again, in not the best conditions, but either way, we don't reshoot groups here, is what it is. You guys have seen the accuracy. We'll address that here in just a second. Now we're going to go into the details of the actual rifle that you see in front of you. We're going to go tip to butt for some semblance of order. And before I do that, I should point out that I could have, in many cases, went with like more expensive product, but I kind of wanted to keep this not like an uber expensive rifle. I could have turned this thing into a $5,000 rifle. It's absolutely not. I chose expensive parts where I thought it was really important, and you know, some not as expensive parts for other portions of it. So out here on the end, we have the VG6 Delta. This is a flash hider, unlike most of the muzzle devices that VG6 makes. And essentially what we have is an improved A2, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite muzzle devices out there for the AR-15 period. Many of you guys may know, just as a general thing, I don't like comps or brakes on AR-15s. That would be especially true in a DMR roll. You don't want that excessive noise giving away your position. You don't want that excessive flash and blast also giving away your position. You don't want to annoy the guy with concussion who's on the spotting scope trying to see your impacts and call your next targets. So for that, this is simply a fantastic muzzle device. We have a closed bottom on there. What that's going to do is give you a little bit of muzzle rise control over, you know, something that had an open bottom. It's also going to have less dirt and dust kicking up if you're firing from the prone. Then we have these longer portions here on the side, a little bit shorter portion here on the offset, and then up on the 12 o'clock position again, we have another elongated prong, if you will. It's closed, so that way it's not going to get caught on anything, and it's just, it does a very, very good job at mitigating flash while still giving you some controlling features. So it's fantastic in that regard. Continuing on back to the barrel that you guys just saw, out there shooting. What this one is here is it is a Bravo company. This is their SAM-R barrel. So for those who don't know, the SAM-R really could be a substitute for the rifle that you see right here. That rifle was designed and put into place by the United States Marine Corps in a designated marksman or SPR, special purpose rifle type of role. So we have the same profile that you'd have on there. Essentially, back here from the gas block, it's pretty heavy. And then going forward just a little bit before the gas block, it steps down into a 0.75 inch gas block and steps down again a little bit more. It has a 1 in 8 twist. The SAM-Rs, for those that don't know, I believe had a 1 in 7.7 twist, so pretty darn close in there. And this has the 5.56 NATO match chamber. So there's a lot you can look around online, but essentially I believe it's the JGE or JSC. I'm probably getting my acronyms wrong. I don't film with notes for those that don't know. But it's essentially that chamber. So why not go with 5.56? Well, 5.56 is designed for safety. You can absolutely just fire 5.56 full auto all day, no problem, and your rifle will be safe in terms of if it gets crud and stuff in there and all of that. However, it does give up some precision because there's some areas in there that aren't as tight as they could be with a more match-oriented chamber. A lot of you guys are familiar with the 223 Wild chamber. This is a little bit different than that, but it's the same concept. Now, a lot of folks out there in the military community think 223 Wild may not be safe for excessive strings of fire. That's a debate you guys can have down below in the comment section. So the 5.56 NATO match was the solution to that. It was the safety, but a little bit more accurized out of it. So if you guys check out what guys are getting out of these particular barrels right here from Bravo Company, you'll see some pretty impressive groups online. Again, I actually was expecting better, but I could fire that exact same test again with the exact same ammo today and get different results. Sometimes it just kind of is what it is, and you got to find the load that your rifle likes. But I have no doubt this thing can shoot better than I did out there with it. It's made out of 410 steel. So for those that are more familiar with like 416R, which is probably more common, 410 is harder. It's also more corrosion resistant. It's less wear, or rather more wear resistant as well. It's just a really, really good product to make a barrel out of. So underneath the handguard here, we have the Geissele Super Precision gas block, and it has the bomb-proof installation. So what that means is I went through and actually drilled out the portion so that way we could pin the gas block on there. The gas block is pinned. There's just no way the thing is coming off at all. The handguard that we went with was, again, Geissele. You'll see that throughout the video a couple more times, I think. This is their Mark 8 handguard, and a lot of people were asking me online why I didn't go with the Mark 14 and why I went with the Mark 8. Well, you know, it's kind of one of those positions there we're talking about earlier in the video. Do you go with weight? Do you go with rigidity? Do you go with other features that may be defining characteristics? So on this one, the Mark 8 is simply proven. It's a super, super rugged handguard. There's nothing wrong with the Mark 14. It would probably do just fine in this role. However, due to it being a little bit lighter in mass, there's more flex that could be induced in there. And if I was thinking of a duty grade rifle, me personally, I still think the Mark 8 probably is a good choice for that. So we went with it. Again, you give up, or you add a little bit more weight versus the Mark 14, but it's still a fantastic handguard. We have M-lock at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions, as well as the offset position there on top. On the bottom, it's cut out, relief cut, so that way you can save a little bit of weight and give you good cooling. We have T-marks on the top, as you would expect, and quick detach sling swivel points there on the sides. We also have these little tabs here on the bottom, which you screw in to prevent any type of possible turning that you could have with the handguard. It hasn't moved. I have a full review of this handguard alone, and it's fantastic. On the bipod here, this is the Magpul bipod. This one is the M-lock direct mount. Of course, I have a full review on the Magpul bipods as well. And I went with this because I really like the bipod. It has one flaw, in my opinion, and that's the pan mode. I don't like it, but there's a way you can lock it out so it doesn't pan, and that's what we did here throughout the use with this rifle. With the direct M-lock attachment, you save a little bit of weight, which is nice, and it just has all the features that I would want in this type of rifle. It's not heavy, which in that case is important. There's other good bipods out there, something like an Accutac. Those are great, but they're so heavy compared to something like this. So for me, out there on the front of my gun, if you have to make a snap shot standing or something like that, I prefer to save weight on the bipod, particularly because in terms of the features you still get pretty much all the same features just without the weight. So you can extend the legs out longer if you want. you can actually rotate the rifle, cant the rifle, so that way your reticle is vertical as it should be when you actually make your shot, so that way your windage calls are correct, all those sorts of things. It collapses away pretty darn easily, and you can just put it up like so, so that way it's not protruding from your rifle if you're going through anything thick. But if you need to quick deploy it, just press down and you're out, and you can begin laying lead. Continuing on back, the receiver set that we went with was the AR-15 M4E1 receiver set. I've done videos on this in the past, but as of right now anyway, it's my favorite forged receiver set out there. It's forged 7075 T6 aluminum. It has the Type 3 hard anodizing on there, and essentially, in my opinion, it's a product improved standard mil spec receiver group. Now, it does take any mil spec parts out there, so you know, our handguard here is just fine on there. You don't have to worry about it. There's no issues in that regard. Magazine release, all that sort of stuff. So there is that. We have a flared mag ball, which I like. Many folks have probably heard that over the past. If you guys watched my channel, we have an enlarged trigger guard, which also is nice. It's hollowed out there to save a little bit of weight. We still retain the forward assist as well as the shell deflector, so that way if you're firing it left-handed, it's not going to get brass in your face in the forward assist. I like it. I think it's a good feature in a military rifle. I know you guys can debate that all day down below in the comments section, so we'll open it up here in just a second and get into those details. But while I have it still assembled here, we'll make sure, double check we are unloaded, and we are. The selector that I have on there is the Geissele safety. It's ambidextrous, however, it has two different lengths. So over here, because I'm a right-handed shooter primarily, we have the short throw lever and then the longer throw there on the left side of the receiver. The trigger there is the Geissele SDE. So for those that are familiar with the SSAE and the SSA trigger, this is the exact same trigger in terms of internals, materials, geometry, all of that stuff. The difference is it has this bow on there, so the flat bow. Now, some folks like that because it gives you a very consistent press regardless of where your trigger finger rather is on the trigger. At this point, I fired with it a good bit. I think this is my first flat face trigger I've actually used in mass and large volume, and I don't know if I like it better than a curved trigger. Honestly, I just don't. So I like the feel of it because I love the Geissele SSAE for sure. And I like, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I highly, highly recommend it. It's just, in terms of the curve versus flat, I don't know yet. I like both. I don't really see a difference in terms of performance with me anyway. So there is that, but the trigger is going to have a couple different stages. It's a two-stage trigger as you'd expect from Geissele, so it has a little bit of uptake there, and then a brake. It's a super clean brake. The brake's going to be anywhere between 3 to 3.8 pounds on this one. Cycles and the reset, let me do it my offhand so you guys can see it. Very short, audible, you have that little bit of take up. And again, super, super clean, super crisp brake. And one thing I like about Geissele triggers for duty type rifles is that they use standard weight springs. So you don't have to worry about them trying to achieve a lighter pull weight with a lighter spring. That can give you light primer strikes or any number of issues that could lead to. So the lockup is the same, the speed is the same, all of that sort of thing that you would want. You're not giving up by going with the Geissele trigger. They're just very, very proven at this point as well. On the inside of our receiver, we do have the M4 feed ramps, as does the barrel on here. So in terms of that, if that's something that's a priority for you, and it's fine if it is, you do have that. The bolt carrier group that we went with here is the Aero Precision. This is their nitrided one. It's a full auto profile as well. Bolt carrier groups, there's a lot of great ones out there today. That wasn't the case a few years ago. There's kind of some bad ones, but one that I think doesn't get enough credit is the Aero Precision. They make very, very good bolt carrier groups and do so at reasonable prices. So went with a nitrided finish just because the nitriding is a little bit slicker. It's a little bit easier to clean. It does a little bit better when it's really fouled up, and also gives you good corrosion resistance, surface hardness, those sorts of things. Our gas key has good staking on there, full auto profile. If you ever have the ability to run a select fire lower rather on it. Our bolt on this one is made out of 9310 steel, and it is MP and HP tested. For those who don't know, that means that basically they fire a proof round, which is the HP portion of that. And then after that, they magnetic particle inspect it to make sure that there's no micro cracks or anything like that that you can't see with the naked eye, and that the metal is still good to go. Now, in terms of 9310 versus 158 Carpenter steel, definitely a video that it could be a video itself. However, if properly heat treated, what I'll tell you is that generally speaking, if properly heat treated, the 9310 is a stronger material. Now, if you guys have been in the game for a while, you'll probably remember back 2013-14, a lot of reports of 9310 bolts having issues. That's because they were heat treated the same way that 158 Carpenter bolts were heat treated, and that's not how it's designed to be. Circa 2020, that's not an issue anymore at all. So you're good to go there, as long as you're going from a reputable manufacturer. The charging handle that we have on there is the Geissele airborne charging handle. There's two charging handles I really like above all others. This is one of them for sure. It has the DDC finish on there, and of course I painted part of it. But the airborne charging handle is nice because it gives you the ability to run it from either side or using both levers, and it gives you a little bit bigger surface than you would typically have with a mil-spec charging handle. It also has this raised portion here, which is a gas busting feature, so that way if you're running the gun suppressed, you're not gonna get a bunch of gas in your face. And really, it's just phenomenal, but it's not so big that it's gonna get caught and snag on everything. Obviously, if we're thinking of a DMR roll, the possibility of an airborne operation is a thing. So if you're jumping with the rifle, typically it's in a case, but if you're jumping with the rifle and you have it slung up on you, you can, or rather you don't have to worry so much about your gear getting caught up, which certainly is important. Looking in here on the lower, everything's basically mil-spec. We have a low shelf lower there, but it is not cut for full auto. For those of you guys who are wondering, I should also point out that this is the Don't Tread on Me version of this lower receiver. I don't know if they're still available anymore, but there was a limited run. That's the one we went with there. But internals is just a standard M16 A1 receiver extension, spring, and buffer. And the grip we went with was the Magpul SL grip. I like the SL grip, even though I have big hands, it's kind of a smaller grip, but it just kind of gives me right about a 90-degree break point on the trigger, which is something I tend to like, looking for precision. I know some folks like to run their thumb over. That's up to you guys. Do as you see fit. The stock on here is the Magpul MOE stock. I really like the stock I have. This is my third one, I think. And a lot of people were asking why I didn't go with the PRS stock. Again, some places in this build, I did go for weight saving. So this one is gonna weigh a lot less than your PRS stock would. And if you're using standard height rings or mounts, a lot of the features that the PRS have, I mean, they're great, but they're not super important. Of course, we do have a storage component back here, as you guys can see. And we have quick detach sling swivel points, both at the front and the back. So you can set your sling up as you'd see fit. We also have the traditional sling mounting point there as well. Now, the magazine that I went with for this particular paint job and that we use primarily throughout this video, there's 3 of these that are painted up. These are the Brownells magazines. Now, historically, if you guys go watch like my best AR-15 magazine video, I have not recommended the Brownells mag, even though I work very closely with Brownells. That's because back then they weren't offering them with any anti-tilt followers. Now they do. So they offer these with the Magpul anti-tilt followers from the factory, and they're fantastic in that regard. They're as good as anything out there on the market in terms of USGI type magazines, and you don't have to worry about having function issues with them. Now, up here on the upper receiver, one thing I didn't point out so far that I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably already posting comments about down below because you didn't watch the whole video, is the Magpul offset sights. So those are the Magpul MBUS Pro. And if you're kind of thinking about this, I'll get in, well, I guess we'll talk about the scope and the iron sights at the same time. So in terms of magnification for this, I was kind of thinking what to go with, right? So do you want to go with something that has like a 1:8 and give you the 1x capability and then sacrifice at the higher end? Now I realize there's 1:10s and stuff like that out there as well. Or do you just want to use the iron sights if you need to do close-in work? So with that in mind, that was kind of my mindset with going with the offset sights. So if you have to go do some CQB type work in there, flip those suckers up, cant your rifle off, do some firing, and these are very capable sights. I've shot these out to 300 yards and gotten hits pretty darn consistently. So they do a great job. All steel, they lock in place nice. One thing I would say is that sometimes, I did that deliberately, but sometimes when you go to put them down, if you don't like follow through with it, you have to go to a certain point for the detent to actually click in. So just make sure you put them down. Sometimes I've left them up accidentally when I thought I put them down, put it that way, but they're fantastic. They're some of the best offset sights out there. Good to go in that regard. And then in terms of the optic, this is one that I, again, was kind of torn on. Do you go with a 1:8? Do you go with a 1:10? Do you go with a 2.5 to 10, etc.? So that's what we went with, was this one here. And unfortunately, guys, I'm going to annoy some of you guys, but right now, this particular scope, which is the Gold Line 2.5
to 10 first focal plane scope from Primary Arms is not available right now. They're rolling out a change to it. I think it's going to have different turrets, and I think it's actually going to be less expensive, but the internals and everything I'm about to talk about otherwise are the same. So it's a fantastic scope. In fact, I had a pretty big role in bringing this scope to market. I worked with the folks over at Primary Arms and Dimitri on what kind of I wanted for a DMR specific type of scope, and that's what we have here. So this one in particular has the HUD DMR reticle for 5.56. And I've said it before in different videos, but geese are going overhead. I don't know how much that's coming in the mic, but the HUD DMR reticle for engaging, you know, enemy combatant type of targets is the best that I've seen to date, period, bar none. It just does a great job. You can auto range pretty much you can auto range in a lot of different ways. You can do shoulders, you can do height, gives you the ability for holding. You can auto range by head. You can hold off. It gives you movement for if your target's running or walking, all of those sorts of things, and it gives you a very, very accurate firing solution in terms of a BDC. Yeah, I love the HUD DMR, and I think in a scope like this, which isn't overly heavy, again, kind of an important thing there, you could go with something that has a bigger tube and maybe gets more light. But again, it's a performance thing, right? This scope on a range, and you know, rather than like in an optics lab when you're testing clarity and all that stuff, is going to perform as well as anything out there and better than a lot of very, very expensive scopes. Now, this one's not inexpensive, don't get me wrong, it has really good glass and all that stuff, but if you were comparing it to, like, you know, some of the high-end Night Force or something like that, that's probably going to give you better glass in theory. But in my opinion, the better reticle that you have here on a two-way range is way more important across the board. So again, we could have went with something more expensive. This one's not super expensive, but it's still excellent. The mount that it's in is the Daniel Defense mount. It's excellent as well in terms of weight. That was one of the big reasons I went with it. It's not a super overbuilt scope. You know, you could go with the Spur or maybe even some of the Geisleys, which are great. They're fantastic, don't get me wrong, but they do weigh a little bit more, and I wanted something that was going to be rock solid. Didn't need the QD capability because of the offset sights that we set up, as well as a 2.5 magnification range as well. If you want to, really, you can use that just fine using the Bindon and Aiden concept. So that's why we went with this setup in terms of the optics. Again, I'm sorry guys, the scope is not available right now. There will be a new version coming out. It has, again, all the same internals, just, I think, just different turrets. So if you guys are looking forward to that, stay tuned, it's coming. We've covered all of the different components that went into this rifle. Let's talk about a few things I know you guys are going to ask about. Number one is reliability. This rifle has had a grand total of 0 malfunctions at all right now. It's got about 1,800 rounds through it, not a single hiccup in any way, shape, or form. That's additionally one of the reasons I do like the 20-inch ARs. This is not my opinion. You can go look at a lot of DoD testing. 20-inch AR-15s are a little bit more reliable than their M4 counterparts. It is what it is. It's as expected with all these quality components. I didn't expect any malfunctions at all, and we didn't have any. So reliability, 100%. Can't be better than that. So no complaints in that regard. The next one's going to be weight. I'm going to roll it in here on your screen just so you guys can actually see it, and that is the weight with a loaded 30-round magazine. So everything you see here, loaded 30-round magazine, you guys can see the weight there on your screen. And with cost, we're going to roll that in as well. Just looking around at some common websites, there'll be links to all this stuff down below in the video description. If you guys are watching on Facebook, if you guys are watching on YouTube, there'll be a link to that info pinned in the comments section as well, so you guys can check it out. But you know, as with anything, rather, it really kind of depends on where you pick it up and what kind of coupon codes you get and all those sorts of things in terms of pricing. But I just went with pricing as of right now. You know, today when filming this video, may change in the future. So there is that, and of course the new updated scope is supposed to be a little bit cheaper as well. So yeah, that's my ultimate DMR rifle right there for sure. I'm sure some of you guys in the comments have said something about accuracy or whatever. Again, guys, it just depends on the day and the ammo chosen, all of those sorts of things, and the loose nut here behind the rifle. But one MOA gun, that's going to give you the velocity that you're going to get out of a 20-inch barrel. If you're using some heavier grain ammo, you know, some 69 grain, some 75 grain, some 77 grain bullets, you're going to get good terminal performance a lot further than you would with like M855, 193, those sorts of things. So something like this absolutely could own terrain on the battlefield and would definitely perform very, very well, especially, again, as, you know, opposed to say like a M4 with a CCO or even an M4 with an RCO. It just has greater capability with the way this rifle is set up here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them down below in the comment section. You can also post those over at my Facebook page. As always, shoot me a message over there if you actually need one of your questions answered, because that is where I get back to everybody. I don't always see the messages here on YouTube. I'm sure this video is going to have a high percentage of people watching it who are not subscribed to the channel. So if you guys like this type of video and you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you guys have done that and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week from me, you can also sign up for my email. Send at max 1 email a week out, and it just has all the videos since the previous email, so that way there's no social media giant filtering what you guys see. And you can do that at my Facebook page under the sign up tab or at the sign up tab on my website as well. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I think we'll let you guys go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video.